Ross Coulthart weighs in on the letter written by Tim Burchett and 5 other representatives to the Inspector General. Mexico enters the UFO game, and other incredible UFO news. So it's time for another UFO news roundup. Get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Okay, let's just get right to it. Ross Coulthart says in a tweet, if there is any future hearings on UAPs, Intelligence Community Inspector General Thomas Monheim should be the first witness called to testify under oath. David Grush says his allegations were investigated by the ICIG and corroborated by first-hand witnesses. Let's ask. And, of course, that's replying to Tim Burchett's tweet about his letter that he and the other representatives wrote. However, I do have a question about what Ross says here. He says the Inspector General should be the first witness called. But the whole point is there won't be any more witnesses called, right? I mean, isn't that what we've been hearing? That there was a clampdown, a reprisal or what have you against Tim Burchett and the others for trying to get this information out there? That they were no longer allowed to have hearings in the House Oversight Committee. So is Ross talking about some other committee, some other subcommittee, some other entity within Congress that would potentially hold these hearings? Will Tim Burchett be allowed to have field hearings if the House Oversight Committee is no longer allowed to have hearings at all? What exactly is Ross talking about? What does he know that I don't know? What is he saying that I'm not seeing? If you guys understand what he's talking about, please let me know, because I don't know how there can be an Inspector General Thomas Monheim testifying under oath at a hearing if there's no hearing. So, yeah. But anyway, there you go. Ross Coulthart responding to Tim Burchett's letter. In other news, Mexico gears up for an historic UFO hearing led by a top ufologist. In an unprecedented move, Mexico's renowned ufologist Jaime Maussan spearheads the nation's first UFO hearing, drawing international attention. Jaime, Mexico's leading ufologist, has unveiled plans for the inaugural UFO hearing at the Mexican Congress. Slated for September 12th, this groundbreaking event marks a monumental chapter in Mexico's history with the unexplained. And that's a really interesting date, right? September 12th, because that's right around the date that Tim Burchett and Luna and Muskowitz and the others requested for the information on David Grush from the IG. So September could be a really juicy month, guys. Stay tuned. The hearing will feature Ryan Graves, a former U.S. Navy pilot known for his testimony before the U.S. Congress regarding his encounters with UAP, but the list doesn't end there. For the first time in Mexico's history, we're hosting such a pivotal event, proclaimed Maussan in a video shared on his Twitter. He hinted at a diverse panel, including international guests, ready to recount their experiences and field questions from Mexican lawmakers in the media. International guests. Could David Grush testify in Mexico? Could we get others involved in the U.S. programs testifying in Mexico as a workaround because there is no more hearings in the House Oversight Committee? What's going on there, guys? Who do you think is going to testify? Is it just going to be people like Ryan Graves and Commander David Fravor and people like that we know about? Or is it going to be David Grush, somebody else that we know about that we definitely want to hear more from? Or is it going to be somebody else? Who do you think is going to testify? Well, he says international, right? So, I mean, we could be talking Jacques Vallée. We could be talking about just about anybody, but I am very excited about what's going to happen in Mexico in September. In other news, Jeremy Corbell had a surprisingly interesting conversation with Chris Cuomo. So let's listen to just a little bit of it.
So it's as I asked Representatives Luna and Burchett, well, what's next? And they said, well, look, we got to get into a skiff. And my personal assessment was, no, you need to get to your leadership. You need to get to your leadership and get them as interested in this as you are, or there is no next, and you're certainly not getting in a skiff, because those classifications are, that credentialing is very manipulated. And I think the president is like farther down the list than anybody would think about, what his level of access is.
I've been in SCIFs, Chris. They let a bearded guy with tattoos with zero clearances, never worked for the government. I've been in SCIFs to give briefings. Journalists get better information than our agency. So them not giving David Grush a SCIF, that was real. I was there. I was standing there. I was there. That is bullshit. That is the same stuff that's been going on for a long time. And it's not just the SCIF. And you're right. We got to get more people on this. We got to get them moving. But honestly, man, I'm so it's so messed up. But I can report to you that the obfuscation is so deep. The holding on to this secret. It is true UFOs are real. It is true that there are what you would call government, what people call government, there are factions within that do not want you to know this truth. Now, why?
They should explain.
Yeah, why? Well, why don't they? Is it for religious reasons? Is it because they're working with the beings? Both? Are there different, even more factions that we don't know about? Are there a myriad of factions potentially? Maybe different groups, different military groups potentially vying for control of this technology or this access to the beings potentially. Who knows what's going on? But one thing we do know what's going on is they are covering this stuff up. And they are doing a really good job at it. I mean, they can't fill a pothole, but they can cover stuff up. Nevertheless, stuff has leaked out, and stuff is going to continue leaking out at an accelerated rate if they try to put the toothpaste back in the bottle. As to Chris Cuomo's point, they need to engage the attention of the leadership and their curiosity and their interest. Absolutely. However, he's saying that's more important than getting David Grush in a SCIF. However, I would argue that it may be necessary to get David Grush in a SCIF to get that information from him in order to engage the higher-ups. So, that is seemingly what is going on with this letter, trying to get information from the IG and getting David Grush in a SCIF, as they are going to hopefully use that information to pressure McCarthy into getting a subcommittee together, a select committee, to hold more hearings and get more information out to the public and into Congress and actually get something done in the public eye on all of this. In other news, today the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies announced the conclusion of a two-part study of UAP, activity in post-World War II atomic warfare assets, with the publication of UAP Indications Analysis 1945 to 1975, the United States Atomic Warfare Complex. One unsettled question about UAP, which has remained the same for some 8 decades, is whether the activities described in UAP reports demonstrate intelligence and intention. Recently, an SCU team finished the second of 2 studies exploring these questions. The peer-reviewed historical studies focused on officially reported incidents from 1945 to 75, relying on government data, which provided extensive material related to UAP and the nation's strategic atomic warfare complex. Very interesting. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I did want to skip down to this part right here. Of the 4 scenarios examined in the second study, the team's analysis of patterns and activities concluded that the most likely intention related to the UAP incidents described during the study period was an intelligent and focused survey of the American atomic warfare complex and its associated warfighting capability. So that's interesting. Of course, it's not just focused on American nuclear equipment or warfighting. This is a global phenomenon, and obviously it goes way beyond atomic energy or weapons or any sort of nuclear usage. They are abducting people in a mass scale, and they have been doing that for a long, long time. But it is really interesting that there are other players in the game of trying to study UAP and get to the bottom of these secrets. And I will link to this article, and you can click on the link right there and read the entire study at your leisure. Oh, and this is cool. Check this out. Now, this is actually a natural phenomenon. But look at this. Isn't that cool? Isn't that just super groovy? I mean, that is just beautiful. My God, that is gorgeous. Look at that thing. What is it? Well, I'll explain it. It's a sundog. It's a member of the family of halos caused by the refraction of sunlight by ice crystals in the atmosphere. They typically appear as a pair of subtly colored patches of light around 22 degrees to the left and right of the sun and at the same altitude above the horizon. Whatever it is, it sure is pretty. This thing isn't quite as pretty, but it sure is interesting. It's a crazy sphere that dropped from the sky in India, and nobody can figure out what the heck it is, at least as of this posting. If they figure it out, I'll let you know. What is that thing? Looks like a big egg. But if it were an egg, I don't think they'd all be standing around staring at it. We also have some really interesting comments from Darren King, the communications director at the John Mack Institute and a great ufologist, on an episode of Engaging the Phenomenon. So let's listen to this for just a few seconds.
Sense of what's going on is really interesting, but I've actually heard in the grapevine from sources I definitely trust that have given me really great information elsewhere that there actually has been an approach by factions of non-human intelligence to 3 governments of the world, basically spearheading this move towards disclosure.
Love it. And what was I just talking about yesterday? What do presidents know about an agreement with the beings? Well, who knows? But it definitely appears like the beings have approached humanity. There are so many stories about that, and there are stories about an agreement being made. And now we have additional confirmation by Darren King, who's, in the loop on some of this stuff, and he has got some good sources. And he says, at the very least, beings have approached governments of man. So, really interesting stuff, guys. If you have enjoyed this UFO roundup, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. I would love to see you guys there. And there are plenty of other videos to check out on the channel. See you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.